Hello and welcome to Shom. Let's quickly discuss what is happening in the North American region and explore its latest geopolitical developments. First, let us talk about a very interesting judicial reform in Mexico. Mexico has decided that from now on, all judges will be chosen through elections. Just like political leaders, judges will now be elected by popular vote. With this move, Mexico has become the first country in the world to take such a step. This is Mexico's attempt to democratize its judiciary. Now the Mexican public will be able to elect all three branches of government: executive, legislative and judiciary. From the Supreme Court to local levels, all judges will now be elected by popular vote. The Mexican government claims that this will make Mexico the most democratic country in the world. However, this judicial reform is also facing criticism. Experts believe it could put judicial independence at risk. The judiciary might become politicized. Judges may align with political parties and campaign accordingly. People might prioritize political loyalty over a judge's competence while voting. This could lead to the election of incompetent, biased or corrupt judges. There is also a concern that this reform might help the ruling party Morena consolidate its power. Overall, there are fears that this reform could have a negative impact on Mexico's justice system. Next update is from the US. US President Donald Trump is planning to double tariffs on foreign steel and aluminium. Foreign steel imported into the US will now face a 50% tariff instead of the earlier 25%. Trump wants to protect the US steel industry. By increasing tariffs on imported steel, he aims to boost domestic manufacturing. Boosting US manufacturing was one of Trump's key campaign promises. However, in the short term, these tariffs will negatively impact the US. Since Trump came to power, steel prices in the US have already increased by 16%. With the rise in tariffs, steel prices are expected to increase further. Additionally, the affected countries are likely to impose retaliatory tariffs on the US. As a result, Trump's move could escalate trade tensions further. The next update is about the Nippon steel deal. To upgrade old steel plants and boost production in the US, Trump is in talks with Japan's Nippon Steel. Trump has usually been against foreign ownership of American companies. When concerns were raised about foreign ownership in the Nippon Steel deal, he responded by saying that US steel companies will remain under American control. Nippon Steel will invest $14 billion in the US and will help set up a new electric arc furnace steel mill. But US Steel will remain American controlled, with a mostly American executive board and the US government holding a golden share with veto power. According to Trump, through this deal, the US is expected to benefit from technological upgrades and increased production. The next update is about the wildfires in Canada. An emergency has been declared in Canada's Manitoba province due to the spread of wildfires. More than 17,000 people have had to be evacuated because of the advancing flames. This gives you an idea of the scale of the crisis unfolding there. The military is also being deployed to assist with evacuations and firefighting efforts. Military aircraft are transporting residents to safer locations where emergency shelters have been set up for them. The city of Flin Flon has been the worst affected. The fire has already spread across 50,000 acres in that area. Not just Manitoba, but several areas beyond the province have also been impacted. Due to prolonged warm and dry conditions, the number of wildfires is increasing globally. This is a consequence of ignoring the climate crisis. Next, let us talk about the India-Pakistan ceasefire credit. Trump has once again claimed that he played a major role in brokering the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He said he stopped a nuclear war by leveraging trade threats. However, India has officially rejected Trump's narrative. India has made it clear that the ceasefire did not happen because of US mediation. Instead, it was a result of direct talks between the DGMOs of India and Pakistan. There was no involvement of any third party in the ceasefire. During Operation Sindoor, there were indeed discussions between India and the US regarding the military situation, but trade was not part of those discussions. Secondly, Trump's claim that a nuclear war was about to happen, in which millions could have died, is also untrue. There was no such scenario. Operation Sindoor was a precise and restrained operation. Using conventional weapons, India targeted and destroyed terrorist and military infrastructure inside Pakistan. After India's airstrikes on Pakistan's air bases, Pakistan was forced to de-escalate. Despite India's diplomatic pushback, Trump continues to take credit. He keeps saying such things, perhaps out of habit, but India has already conveyed the true facts about the ceasefire to the world. Now let us talk about Canada-India relations. Recently, pro-Khalistan Punjabi singer Jaswinder Singh Bains, also known as Jazzy B, was invited to the British Columbia Legislative Assembly. If Khalistani sympathizers continue to be promoted in this manner, then Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney will be repeating the same mistake made by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This will only prevent the improvement of India-Canada relations. India's Ministry of External Affairs has issued a strong warning to Canada, urging it not to provide a platform to individuals who promote violence and separatism, and to take India's territorial integrity seriously. India has repeatedly raised the issue of Canadian support for Khalistanis with the Trudeau administration. However, due to vote bank politics, Trudeau chose to ignore those concerns, which severely damaged ties with India. Now that Trudeau has exited office, Mark Carney has an opportunity. It will be better if he avoids adopting Trudeau's soft approach towards Khalistanis and instead rebuild ties with India to achieve long-term mutual benefits. The next update is regarding Donald Trump and the Harvard controversy. The Trump administration had revoked Harvard University's certification for the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, commonly known as SEVP. Under this program, Harvard was able to enroll international students. With this certification revoked, Harvard would no longer be able to issue Form I-20, which is required for student visas. As a result, the legal status of over 6,500 international students would be at risk. They would either have to transfer to another SEVP certified institution or face deportation. Trump revoked Harvard's SEVP certification, stating that the university is anti-Semitic and failed to control the campus protests against Israel. According to the Trump administration, the university supports anti-American and pro-terrorist activities and is allegedly coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party. Therefore, its SEVP certification was revoked. Harvard challenged this decision in court, and the latest update is that a district judge has blocked the Trump administration's order. For now, this means that Harvard can continue enrolling international students. The court stated that the Trump administration's action would cause serious harm to Harvard University. However, the Trump administration has appealed the lower court's decision in the Supreme Court, and the case will now proceed there. The next update is on US-China trade. Trump wants to address the trade tensions with China. For this, he plans to talk to Chinese President Xi Jinping. He's saying this now, even though just a day ago, he was talking about taking stronger action against China. According to him, China has violated its trade agreement with the US, especially the one related to critical minerals. One day, Trump talks about intensifying measures against China, and the next day, he talks about resolving trade tensions with it. One day, he talks about reducing tariffs, and the next day, he doubles the tariffs on foreign steel and aluminium from 25% to 50%. Trump is so unpredictable. He flip-flops so much that it is hard to know what will happen next. It is difficult to tell which issues he is actually serious about and what he just says casually. We keep seeing these kinds of conflicting statements from him. China is not happy with Trump's stance. It says the US is engaging in economic bullying and that Trump's tariff strategy is unsustainable. However, due to domestic pressure and the upcoming US midterm elections, Trump has slightly softened his aggressive stance. After the Geneva talks, both sides agreed to reduce tariffs for 90 days. Tariffs on China were reduced from 145% to around 30%, and China cut its tariffs on the US from 125% to 10%. But even now, the situation remains quite fluid, and the distrust between the US and China shows no sign of easing. In today's final update from the North American region, we'll talk about Elon Musk's exit from the White House. Musk, who was leading the Department of Government Efficiency, shortened as DOGE, has now completed his contract. After around 130 days, his role as a special government employee has come to an end. During his brief tenure, he claimed to have made significant cuts in federal spending. However, his claims have been described as exaggerated, and questions have been raised about the transparency and accuracy of the figures he reported. He also faced massive backlash for aggressive cost-cutting and attempts to overhaul government agencies. Several lawsuits were filed, and in some cases, courts even reversed DOGE's actions. Before leaving, Musk publicly criticized Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. But when the two appeared together at a press conference, They chose to complement each other instead. Musk couldn't achieve anything particularly significant during his time in office. In fact, he became entangled in several controversies and suffered massive business losses. He was increasingly seen as a liability rather than an asset, and there were frequent clashes with other cabinet members. Now, with his exit from the White House, Musk will finally be able to focus on his businesses.